valuable and probably most interesting to this audience, if we do get this out to a group of high school athletes, is the question surrounding recruiting. Those that coach college here, we're all very much involved in recruiting. If you're a high school coach, you're aware of your athletes that move on to the college level, and then we're all college athletes, so we're aware of that process, having gone through it. I think I field a lot of questions. I actually had a recruit recently out of the blue contact me, and instead of asking about our program, asked about the recruiting process and how she could prepare herself for it, which I thought was interesting. And I think a lot of students want to know, how do you get recruited? What do you do? What should you do? What shouldn't you do? How do you make yourself appealing to a college program or college coach? And I think we can probably provide a lot of different perspectives on that. So I think I want to dive into that direction if you guys are willing to. So I'm probably going to start, I'll swing it to the high school coaches here first, actually. You guys are in it every day. You coach kids that want to go on to college and compete. What are some of the things that you encounter as questions and or possibly even think do's and don'ts that you would want athletes to be aware of as they move along? And even just, well, I'll start with that. So Donnie, Austin, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so from my experience, even when I was in high school, nothing too special talent-wise coming out of Suffolk County, Long Island. If I ever made the finals, I got seated in lane 1 or lane 8 for the finals, so we all know what that means. So when I was going through the process, I was mainly the one reaching out to coaches. No coaches really, got a few letters from schools I never heard of, but I was reaching out to Geneseo, Vermont, Ithaca, Binghamton. Those are my, Final four. And my mindset going into just my own experience was I want to be at a place where it's going to be a safe place, not only athletically, but academically, because I said at the intro, I'm a social studies teacher at Victor. I was a bio major at Geneseo my first year, and it didn't work out. And I was very fortunate that the school I was at had other academic programs that were very strong. So that sort of goes into what I sort of explain to the kids is make sure you're going to a school for more than one reason. Make sure there are a bunch of different things that line up. Because sometimes when I have some athletes talk to me, all the way from freshmen who have these goals of going to the NCAA, or even seniors looking last minute, got to make sure that they're looking at the biggest picture possible. And also that their picture is also a realistic one. And one of the tools that Hunkovic and I have been using with kids that have goals of competing and being recruited is, if you're a track and field athlete, if you're a cross country runner, you're competitive by nature. It's that individual team sport, right? And I forgot who brought it up before, but it's a sport where you put yourself out on the line every competition and every workout, where people can see when you do well, people can see when you struggle, people can see how you respond. And everyone, or every recruit, every athlete that I've met that has wanted to compete and competed at the college level wants to get better when they get to that college level. Nobody wants to run one time in high school and then keep that time for their next 4 years. So Hunkovic and I always have the kids, we say, listen, if your goal is to grow, you got to look at how some of the athletes on these college teams that you're interested, how they've progressed. If people are getting to college and then sort of staying flat, maybe that says something about what's going on. But if you can look at a program and say, okay, these schools that I'm interested in, the athletes seem to be, for the most part, significantly getting better, that means two things. It means the coaches are doing a good job and the athletes are doing a good job as being part of that family and stuff like that. So that's a big sign. And I also, when it comes to like being realistic and making sure people are going to be comfortable where they are, we send them to TFERs, where they can look at the conference leaderboards. And because if you are the fastest or the best at your school and you have been consistently top 5 in your section or whatever it be, and you're going to want to get to a school where you can have that potential to fit in that area eventually, and not maybe be someone that's totally stuck at the bottom, because that could end up being frustrating and then forcing you to maybe have to change things up, or maybe even leave your passion that is track and field behind. So we have them look at the conferences, the teams, say what is realistic when it comes to what schools you can go to, and then are the athletes at that school, are they progressing, things like that. But another thing that sort of is troubling for a lot of these kids that we've been noticing is just with social media, and I know that's a touchy subject, but when I was, as a recent college grad, recent high school grad even, I didn't know what was going on in track and field outside of Suffolk County. I had no idea. But these kids that are constantly on social media are seeing what seems like everyone getting full scholarships to these monster D1 schools. And like I said, when I was running, I maybe heard of one kid on Long Island that got it. But now they're seeing the kids all over the country. And I think that's tough, and it puts an added stress on it. But and the last thing I say, I'm talking for a while, when the kids are being recruited, I know from hearing it from the college coaches, the college coaches want to hear from the kids. They want to talk to the kids as much as possible. They want to get to know who that kid is, what the goals of that kid are, and really what their personality is all about, things like that. So at every point, when you're talking to a coach, you got to treat it like it's a totally formal email, no abbreviations, like it's text lingo. Hold yourself as a professional and things like that, and that will help ease the recruit process.
Thanks, Donnie. Shane, Billy, Ross, Chai, anything you guys want to piggyback on there?
Pop, I just want to piggyback on something Austin was saying about like looking at social media and seeing, other kids, maybe even from your section, from your state, around the country, signing at different colleges. And I think that can be overwhelming. And I think that's something that athletes have to watch out and avoid. They shouldn't be picking a school just because they think that other people like them are also picking that school. They have to pick a school based on what's right for them from a fit standpoint, whether it be, it's got to be that combination, academics, social, and athletics all together. They can't pick just athletics and then say, all right, that's it. Because, what happens, the thing that I've just stressed to athletes with that is if you pick athletics and then you have a season where you're injured and you kind of lose a little bit of that, does everything else, does nothing else matter then? So you really have to pick a school based on everything that has the full package. And a recent student athlete that I coached, he's at Columbia now. He, in an Ivy League school, he didn't get an athletic scholarship. And I kept on telling him along the process, you got to use your legs to open up a door in life that might have been previously closed. And for him, it was going to an Ivy League school because academically, he probably wouldn't have gotten in. He was a great student, but he just wasn't there. But the combination of those two things got him there. And during the recruiting process, he was looking at some other athletes who were signing scholarships here, scholarships there, and he started to second guess himself a little bit. And we had a talk, and we said, you got to pick a school that is the right fit for you, not the right fit for everybody else or what might look good on an Instagram story. And he ended up picking what I think is the right choice, and I think he would totally agree with me on that too. Because he's on his way to graduate from an Ivy League school with, and made some of the best friends he'll ever have in his entire life. So I just, I think that was a great point. I just wanted to jump on that Austin said there.
I appreciate that, Billy. The other high school coaches here. Anything you guys want to touch on?
Austin hit on a lot of great things. One of the challenges that's come with having a little bit of success coaching is they see former teammates sign some of those big scholarships and go and be in the right place, right? Like, when an Aiden Tooker signs at Syracuse and breaks 4 minutes in the mile and, runs with Justin Knight, that's really a great thing for your program in a lot of ways because, he's an ambassador for your program. But not everybody, can go and do that, or, have Shea Wildbaker go and run at Georgetown and run at NCAA nationals as a freshman during his freshman cross country season. So these things can be a little bit of a blessing, but sometimes a curse. And then you get guys like are running for you guys at Geneseo now, like Ezra Ruggles, who applied to one school, didn't need the visit. He was going to Geneseo if he got in because I told him he'd like it, and he trusted me, explicitly. And I guess you and Danny had enough in common with me that when he met you, he's like, yeah, they seem like Zanetti. That's cool. And he was sold. So, and that's worked out really well too. But I guess what I say was when kids go on visits, like Austin and Billy said, they need to be able to advocate for themselves in a professional way. When they're talking with their coaches, they need to talk about what works well in their training and what they value in training and in a team culture. So I say, you got to know your log. Let's talk workouts before you go. Tell coach what you like. Tell coach how you found success in high school and areas of strengths and weaknesses. Like, you got to be able to communicate those things. And the other thing that from the running perspective, I really like it, and I have a tendency to push kids in the direction of schools when the coaches are willing to hear me out about the kid. I like to be able to reach out to a coach and say, hey, so-and-so had a great visit. I really appreciate you, sharing your team. Let me tell you a little bit about them, and I'll share what I believe are their strengths and weaknesses, as a student and as an athlete, and what they benefit from, and what I think could help them succeed and transition to the next level. And I really like when a college coach provides you with a genuine response to that. Now, you guys being great friends of mine, we have those conversations. I can call you on the phone or text you. They don't have to be as formal as me emailing, some college coach I've never met before. But, that means a lot to me as a high school coach, to feel like I'm being heard by the person that's going to take care of this person that I care about as they make this huge step, kind of blindly, hopefully not that blindly, to figure out the next part of their life pretty independently.
I appreciate that, Shano.
Yeah.
I'll jump in quickly. I'm going to mirror a lot of the same things that Donnie said, because we are coaching the same program together, which is awesome. But I've been coaching for 11 years, which is all the years that I've been teaching, and I've been 5 different schools, and I've found some common things between all sorts of different school districts: rural, urban, suburban, affluent, not as affluent. And when an athlete is a junior or a senior and they tell me that they want to compete in cross country or track and field in college, the first thing that I say is why. Plain and simple. And sometimes you get a pause and you get a bit of a delay when they think about it, because they don't exactly know why. So that's what we start with. And when you really make them dig and talk about their reasons why they want to continue to do this sport with a brand new program, brand new coach, brand new teammates, which, for our school, it's only about, Donnie, 5% of our athletes go on and compete in college right now. You get really different answers. Some of them say, what you touched on earlier, I'm competitive. I really had a lot of success. I love the sport. I think my best years are ahead of me. I think I can race and be more successful. Other athletes say, my parents want me to, which is the wrong answer. And then you kind of battle with what kind of program is good? And a lot of people touched on that. I think that you have to look at it holistically. I love the fact that Austin talked about how academics are such a huge piece. A few years ago, I remember that they were doing a commercial during Final Four basketball, and it was sponsored by the NCAA, and it had all these young professionals, like in their late 20s, at different corporate jobs, and they were wearing like a suit and tie or a dress, and they were holding a lacrosse stick or holding a football or holding their track spikes. And the basic motto of the commercial was, here's to the NCAA for millions of athletes that become professional in something else. And I thought that was always a really powerful commercial, because it shows that this is going to be 4 or 5 or 6 years of your life, but then you're off to the real world, and very few people are going to compete post-collegiately and make a career out of it. So I like that notion. But, to what Austin talked about, I think it's in finding the correct fit for you. Ultimately, I think I talked about the recruiting process where you sit down with the coaches and the team. I think that that's the icing on the cake, but doing your research and having athletes be diligent about researching that program. I love, and I do exactly what Austin said. We have some of the same kids in our section go to similar programs, and we get online and we stalk them and we say, okay, they're now a junior. How much better have they gotten? You can follow their times through TFRS. You can look at the program. And I just encourage my athletes when they sit down with a collegiate coach or when they get them on the phone to have a clipboard and a list of questions. What are the workouts going to look like? Are they the same for everybody? Or are they going to be individualized for me? What happens if I get hurt? How do you recover your athletes? What are the expectations regarding mileage? What are the expectations regarding lifting programs? If I go there as a freshman, are you still going to be my coach when I'm a senior? Or is this college a stepping stone for you to go someplace else? What does it take to make the travel squad for your conference championships? All these different things. And I think that's one of the advantages a high school coach has if they've competed at a collegiate level, because they've seen these things and they know these things. One of the things that I know a lot of high school coaches can probably relate to is, when you have a good athlete, especially an athlete who is, maybe at the state level or a sectional champ, a lot of times, across the board, I've seen there's this fixation with Division I programs. Everybody thinks that if you go Division I, it's automatically better than Divisions 2 and 3. And people that have been in those programs, especially in track and fields, where, it's based on time and mark and distance, that's the ultimate equalizer, where you can see, there are garbage Division I programs out there that Division III programs like SUNY Geneseo would kick the crap out of. And then there's phenomenal D3 programs out there that are competing continuously against Division I programs. So, adolescents who are so impressionable, and oftentimes their parents who like to keep up with the Joneses, sometimes they fall into that trap of just loving to say, my kid's got a Division I scholarship, or I'm a scholarship Division I athlete. And a lot of programs, meaning high school programs, have also started to do this thing, which I really have mixed feelings on, where if an athlete gets a scholarship for Division I or II, they do a signing with them, and they bring the local newspapers, and they give them a pen, and they sit them at a table, and everybody comes around. And, I think that stuff is exciting for parents, but oftentimes it fuels this, well, I need to get a scholarship. Doesn't matter if it's $1,000 to a Division I program where I'm going to be the number one athlete as a freshman and I'm going to have no growth. So you kind of have to knock down some of those normal sort of blinders that adolescents often have to say, look, you have to cast a wide net and think, what is going to be best for me, regardless of division, in terms of what your goals actually are.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Christy, I was going to ask you, you were a phenomenal student, outstanding GPA at Geneseo. I'm sure you had, and times in high school, I'm sure you were looking at a number of schools, or at least had many options for a number of schools. What, thinking back as when you were in the shoes of a senior in high school and looking at schools, sort of what advice you'd give a kid nowadays, or your own athletes that you talk them through this process yourself?
I would say a lot of what everyone said is true. Thinking about, like Ross was saying, with divisions, I think a lot of kids get caught up in that, and other advice about asking questions to coaches and really researching the school and understanding. I would say that I think sometimes kids, especially if they have a lot of choices and they have a lot of different options and it's hard to narrow down, they put so much pressure on themselves, and they kind of feel like it matters so much what I choose and where I choose, and I have to choose the perfect college and the perfect major and the perfect coach. And I really feel a lot of your experience is what you make of it. I mean, yes, you want to find the right fit, and yes, you want to make sure that it's a place you can see yourself happy at for 4 years, regardless of how well you're running or if you're injured. But my closest friends in high school and I all chose to run in college and went to pretty different programs. One went to a Division I school. That's a very, powerhouse, top 10 in the country program. And my other close friend and I both went to Division III programs that were pretty different from each other. And all three of us had really great college experiences. And I think we're similar as people, but the reason that we had such good experiences is because we really tried to make the best of it and really tried to, take opportunities that were given to us and work hard and enjoy our teammates, enjoy our coaches. So I think sometimes it feels like there's so much pressure to make this perfect choice and do the perfect thing and not make a mistake and go somewhere that's wrong for you. But at the same time, so much of it is what you make of it, that I think that's a big piece of advice I would give, and I do give high school athletes.
Thanks. And then Chrissy, you did, and actually more. I mean, you guys worked together at St. John Fisher for a little bit. With recruiting at the college level, you guys, I mean, Dan, your job was primarily for a year just to recruit. And I know, Chrissy, you kind of took that mantle on for a little bit yourself. As a college coach, hearing what the high school coaches here and our friends here have said, what are some things that you might add in or add a perspective on that might be a little different as we talk about this?
I would say, first of all, thank you for telling your athletes that. I mean, it takes a lot of, not pressure off of us, but, you know, we're glad that they're hearing that, because it does need to be heard. And they're all like super great points to be made in recruiting. The one thing we always said was, you know, there are a lot of athletes out there in the state and other states that we coaches are looking at. And if we're not specifically directly contacting you and looking at you, it doesn't mean we wouldn't want you on the team. And you do have to, as a high school athlete, sometimes advocate for yourself. And we want that. That makes our lives a little easier if we actually know, oh, you are interested in us? Okay, let's go down that road, you know, and, you know, don't take offense if you haven't been reached out by us personally first. You know, there's, like you said, sometimes you get stuck in your little bubble of your county and you don't really know what else is going on in the world, and you're good where you are, but, you know, there's a lot of other good athletes too. So, you know, don't take offense to it. Another thing that, as when I was out recruiting, I want the athlete to be able to talk to me face to face if I'm out recruiting and be polite. That was a big thing for me. Some kids weren't very polite to me, and I would just like write them off, you know. I'm like, okay, no, I don't really want him on my team or her on my team. She can't even look me in the eyes. Or, you know, if you don't want to be on the team, that's fine. You know, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I want you, but, you know, learn to be courteous and say, you know, I'm very appreciative, but no, thank you. You know, and then if anything were to change down the road and you did change your mind, you're still on my list as a nice person that I might want on my team. And in the day of social media and texting and all this stuff, I think, you know, face-to-face talk is kind of harder for kids this day and age to do with adults, maybe. So that was always important to me.
Yeah. Dan, I actually, before I pitch back to you, that kicked a thought in my head. I mean, and Chrissy, I was already thinking about this, but we look at these stats as college coaches every year. They're more because I'm passing them on to my administrators to validate, you know, our resources and our goals with our program. But a lot of colleges use track and field as a way to get more kids into the school. A lot of private schools that are smaller, it's an enrollment management process. They want to have athletes there. They recruit athletes to help keep the school filled up and have enough students and such. But we know these metrics that New York State is 15,000 high school athletes in track and field. That's a lot. 15,000 kids. I can't possibly, as a college coach, contact that many kids, even if I just skim the top 5%. That's still over or close to 1,000 athletes, just under that. It's tough for me to reach out. And you add into it that I don't have your phone number or your email address. I don't know where you live. I know your result. I know your name. I might want to contact you, and then I got to start the process of figuring out how. There are a lot of steps in that, and there are a lot of good athletes, as Chrissy mentioned, and as Austin mentioned about Long Island. I mean, there's a lot of kids out there in track and field across the country at the high school level, almost a quarter to 500,000 kids. At the NCAA level, Division I, there's 25,000 Division I track and field athletes. It's a massive sport. So when you start thinking about getting noticed, you might be noticed in your county. You might be the best kid on your roster, but you have to advocate for yourself. If you're interested in schools, take the reins. I can't tell you how frustrating it can be if I approach a student at a meet, a high school kid, and I want to get to know him because they impressed me in some way, and they tell me they've been waiting for someone to reach out to them. you got to take the reins of that process. You're making a decision about 4 years of your life. That's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars for your education. You can't wait for schools to come to you. Get involved with that process. If you want to be an athlete in college, the biggest thing I look for, and Chrissy touched on this, is someone who can advocate for themselves, who has self-awareness, who's mature and can communicate. And if you're not willing to talk to me and reach out to me and advocate for yourself, or you don't know how to, that's a red flag for your ability to be successful in college. Because I can't hold your hand through every step of the way in college. You need to be willing to do that. Your mom and dad aren't going to be there with you. You don't want them there. You're happy when they leave in August and drop you off at school, but then they're gone. And then it's the best resource you have on my campus is me and my coaching staff. And if you can't talk to us and you haven't gotten to know us, then how can we help you? And that starts in the recruiting process. You have to want to talk to me and communicate with me. And I'm just one college coach, but as you go through and look at the schools as a high school athlete and you take notice, if you're interested, email the coach, call the coach. Don't have mom and dad do it. They can help you with email. I encourage them to, but reach out and take ownership of that, because it's your decision ultimately and it's your life. And you might be the best kid in the section, but if you're not going to be polite or reach out and take ownership of that, you're not going to get very far. I know a lot of Division I programs that, just as Chrissy said, if you're not going to be polite to them, they got plenty of other fish in the sea to go chase across the country. So be grateful that someone's taken notice of your talents, but also take ownership of your life in that regard if you want to do this because you care about it. That's kind of my thought on that Chrissy kind of kickstarted there. Coach Moore, anything you want to, or Coach Walk, anything you guys want to add in on that?
Yeah. So when I'm talking to prospective student athletes, I let them know just about some of our stats on our program. We're blessed to be a pretty dominant program at the Division III level, and we're often looking at individuals on their high school team that have been the number one runner for their senior year, their junior year, sometimes even sophomore and freshman year. They don't know what it's like not to be number one. And then to come into a program and not only not be number one, but maybe be in the 50th percentile or the 75th percentile, or come in like myself, the second to last guy on the team. We don't know what that feels like because we're so used to being successful where we came from. So I make sure that I tell them, if you want to be at a program where you are going to be the number one runner, Geneseo is not for you. Just be very straightforward on that end. Our number one runners are faster than most of the best high school runners. Our guys are running under 9 minutes for the 3,200. Sean McEnany ran 8:17 for a 3K. That's the equivalent of like an 8:52. There's not too many high schoolers in the country that run that. So they're not going to be the number one runner. So they need to understand just where they would fall. And I encourage them to ask any coach that they're looking at, where do you see me fitting in on the roster? Will I have travel opportunities? All of that. So that's one of the things that I make sure I'm very crystal clear on where I view that they're going to be. I also want to make sure that they understand how much of a team Geneseo is. Running, especially track and field and cross country, can be seen as an individualized sport. I look for recruits that care more about the name on the front of the uniform than the individual representing it. We are a team, and there are individuals out there that want more of those individual accolades, and we can get that at Geneseo. Don't get me wrong, but they want to be part of a team, that we're going in and trying to win the conference championships. We're trying to qualify for teams at a nationals. And that's important for them to know, and that we're all in this together. It's not a cutthroat environment where I'm racing my teammates every day. We're working together. And really just talking about, again, that notion of the name on the uniform is more important than the individual representing it. Because there are those programs out there that really focus on the individual and not the team. A lot of the coaches in our conference, like, how is Geneseo so successful? It's because of the team camaraderie. And, we've heard other coaches talk about, we got to be more like Geneseo. Their teammates are cheering for each other. They really care about one another and across all the different event levels. That's the type that we're trying to bring into the Geneseo is the athletes that want to be part of a team. and that can really support one another, not just on the cross country course or the track, but in the classroom, socially holding each other accountable. It is really one big family, and understanding what they're getting into, because maybe that's not the experience that they're looking for. So that's what I look for out of recruits, that and ask them, kind of like what Coach Hunkovic Ross was saying, of why do you want to compete?
Yeah, and it's a valuable question. Go ahead, Ben.
Everybody's given such good advice. I'm not going to add anything conceptual, but if you are a high schooler who's interested in running in college watching this, I'm going to give a quick how-to on writing an email to a college coach, because this can make or break you. It's a funny thing to need to how-to, but it's something you've probably never done before. Step one is every single college coach in the country has their email address on the athletics website for their school. If it's not on their coaching bio, there's a staff directory page, and you will find their email address on that. Use their email address, introduce yourself, list your PRs that are verifiable, list your GPA, and if you have test scores, list the test scores. If you have access to your transcript, even if it's unofficial, attach the transcript. Anything beyond that is great. If you've got academic interests that you're really enthusiastic about, list them. But those things are absolutely essential, because those are the starting points. We might love you as a person, but if we look at you and we go, that's a GPA that unfortunately just isn't going to get into the school, we don't want to waste your time. It's always our goal that people find a college that's right for them. And so we don't want to spend your time where you could be looking for the right place for you if we're not going to be it. So give us your basic information so that we can serve you better. That's the whole purpose of that first email.
And it was touched on before, but and it's kind of between the lines there, Ben, but email isn't text. And anyone here who's talked to me in the last 5 years of my life has heard me complain about those emails that don't have a name. There's no, this is who I am, this is where I'm from. I've gotten emails that, hi, I'm Sam. I'd like to run track at your college. And that's great, Sam, but there's a lot of Sams in the world, and I don't know this one. And there's no marks, there's no school, there's no nothing. And quite frankly, you might be, that student might be a phenomenal fit in every other metric, but we would never find out, because I don't take my time at this point in my career and with our program and the numbers that we generate in terms of recruits that want to come to Geneseo. I can't reply to those emails and coach them through that, and go searching out for those results. So as Coach Wack put it, be concise and be deliberate in how you approach us and any college coach, because that's your first impression, and that'll make or break whether that relationship goes further. So if you really are sincere, we expect that you provide information that shows that, and it's not just a quick thought or an impulse decision to email us.
And a note really on that, if you have even the most transient interest in a college, send off that email, because the reality is it's really hard to get to know a school from afar. Most people's impressions of colleges before they get to them are based on like bowl games on TV. No matter how many times you've seen a team play football on TV, you don't know what it's like at that school. And so if you have the slimmest interest in a school, send the email off and give yourself the opportunity to learn more. You might find your perfect school. Like I knew nothing about Geneseo until I emailed Coach Woods. And, at the time I really wanted to be a teacher. I didn't know how to research a school. I had no idea that Geneseo was one of the best places I could go in New York State to become a teacher. And so that email that basically just said, hi, I'm Ben, I like track, here are my times, here are my grades, set up the whole process of me falling in love with, a place that I absolutely fell in love with.
Yeah. And just before we wrap this up, any other tidbits on recruiting, guys, you want to add in that came to mind before we jump on to the next bullet? The only other thing I would add is as you go through the recruiting process and introduce yourself to the coach, save their number, whether it's text or call. And as Chrissy pointed out before, whether you change your mind about that school or you move away from it, You're not hurting our feelings by telling a college coach, I'm no longer interested in the school. We actually welcome that in a lot of regards, as opposed to silence. It's all about being as forthcoming and honest and professional with that, because we don't want to waste your time chasing you and put you in a situation that's uncomfortable with us contacting you. So if you're no longer interested in the school that you started the process with, tell the coach. And second to that, as you go through the process, field their calls, field their texts, stay in contact. If news changes with you, I know as a college coach, I always want to hear. I know Coach Moore, we talk daily about this stuff. We always want to hear from anyone we're recruiting about any updates or any questions they have. And we want to hear from your mom and dad too. If they have questions, it's a family decision typically. And any college coach that is sincerely interested in you being a part of their program is going to field your calls and wants to hear from you. So don't be shy and nervous to contact us, is part of that. And then the last bit is, as you go through the process and you visit the campus, plan overnights. I can't stress that enough, that's what was my deciding factor in school, was going on my overnight visits. I went to 2. I narrowed down my list of 3 schools. I eliminated 1 and then did overnights to 2, and vastly different experiences. Both I made a decision on in the first 10 minutes. One, I knew I wanted to get out of there in the first 10 minutes and never return. And the other one was Geneseo, and I knew with just hanging out in the office and having the athletes come through before practice that this had the vibe that fit me, based on how the coach interacted with the athletes and how the athletes interacted with each other. It just felt like a team that I would have fun on. Having figured out all the other questions that we've gone through academically and such, it came down to how am I going to decide on which one I want to go to. That was the big decision, was the way the team felt and the campus felt when I stayed over. So I stress that get to the point where you have a shorter list, plan your overnights. Don't do them too soon until you've researched the schools, because you only get a limited number, especially for Division 2 and 1. But for Division 3, you get as many as you want. But plan those out so that you can get the best experience and make a comparison from school to school, because every program is different. And figuring out those pros and cons of each school can be helpful.